Welcome, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to the Business List, your weekly newscast and your source for breaking stories inside the party, across the country, and around the world. We are LP Alliance, an intercaucus coalition dedicated to rebuilding and revolutionizing the Libertarian Party. Kyle has queued up a prompt for that, something that I've already read, so I will not read it. I'm Amanda Griffiths, and we have Kyle laughing deviously next to me. We also have Rose Leatherman and Jake Porter here this evening, and we will later be joined by a special guest whose name may or may not rhyme with Ace Colliver. So, everyone, how are you this evening?
Happy to be here on this great big second episode.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we do have things to get to this evening. I think something that we should probably start out with is, of course, the news around El Salvador, or rather the Trump deportations of certain individuals there too. Recently, we did have a visit from El Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele, who was very, very gung-ho about visiting with President Trump, and the two of them discussing plans to deport homegrowns, in quotes, as well. Now, this comes after we have heard about a makeup artist who may or may not be a member of a gang because of some tattoos that he has on his arms that very, very vaguely resemble gang tattoos. One thing that we have seen on social media and the rest is that this has been demonstrably proven that this person is a member of a gang because of official documentation confirming it. The official documentation we've looked at, and it says he's a member of a gang. That's the evidence. The evidence is that there's a document that says he's a member of a gang. It's a court document. Everyone, this is rousing a lot of rabble, which I'm happy about, kind of all over the country. There have been protests against Trump. But where is this taking us exactly?
Well, we went through something similar during the Bush administration as well, with like extraordinary rendition and the precedent being set that it was okay to round up people. Oftentimes, people would have their homes raided in the middle of the night. They'd be they'd be taken. They'd be secretly shipped off to some foreign country and held. And this was because the state had labeled them terrorists or being potentially connected to terrorism. And I mean, I said this at the time, like this is a very dangerous thing because this will eventually be turned against US citizens. Okay, everyone's like, no, this is just a temporary measure. Like, this is just to remove dangerous people who want to blow things up. Yeah, I mean, it's happening again. The state is showing that it can just label someone as a gang member, and yeah, they lose their rights to a fair trial or even to being charged with anything.
Rose, I'm hearing what you're saying, but what I'm hearing is also a lot of radical empathy. And as we know, this is a problem with libertarians. So there's been a bit of a break in the party where there are a few individuals who are insisting that we don't need to give due process to these people if we have the burden of, the preponderance of evidence is against them. Angela McArdle recently wrote that, I can't fully articulate this problem yet, but I think that libertarianism has been hijacked, I do it too, by radical empathy, and that we don't fully understand the concept of a right to a fair trial. I don't think we do either. And the presumption of innocence. Libertarians have elevated it above all other rights and factors. Kyle, you're a dirty classical liberal. Is this true?
I haven't been listening.
It's an issue with like the constitutionalists and whether like Constitution applies to all people or just U.S. citizens, which seems to be the primary debate among the constitutionalist crowd.
Kyle, have you been hijacked by radical empathy?
I have not been hijacked by radical empathy so much as I've always had radical empathy. So you can't hijack what is. I don't consider the Constitution radical empathy anymore. I consider it pretty well the norm, and the concept that following due process and following the Constitution, especially the Anti-Federalist Bill of Rights, which is the only part our kind of groups got through into the Constitution directly, is insanity. like we're so radical that we believe in the Constitution. We're so radical that we believe in due process. We're so radical that on the weekends all of us go hop on our skateboards and grind rails. Maximum radical.
I have a theory of collective action called radical maximalism. I don't know if you're trying to co-opt that now.
No, it's everyone knows the most radical people are skateboarders. This is just fact. And so on the weekends we have to go skateboarding together. That's
rad maxing.
The radical.
Rad maxing. Yes. Yeah. Jake, what about you? You're a radical. Are you radically empathetic? Is this one of the radical caucus's new ploys?
I absolutely am radically empathetic. This is an Elon Musk, I think, talking point that Angela's using. And she, of all people, should know the importance right now of due process as she's being accused by me of embezzlement, that she should want due process. But Rose was completely correct in this, that the precedent was set, nearly 25 years ago on using these temporary measures. But this is a little bit more dangerous. Now we're talking about the agreement that Marco Rubio and the El Salvador president made was that they eventually want to put U.S. citizens in this torture prison. And the way they do things in El Salvador is they can round you up. They can look at them, say, you've got a gang tattoo. They arrest you, due process later, if ever. They can hold people with 2 years in this terrorism facility that they have, no trial. And so we also need to be considerate here that due process is important. There's also something else you could say, well, they're not a citizen. How have you even proven that? They could be rounding up people, sending them on these planes. And I think the ultimate test is going to be, does Trump follow what the Supreme Court has told him, or are we going to enter into a constitutional crisis within the next month that turns us from being a representative democracy over to being an anocracy where a lot of these rights are no longer have. We're on the brink of totalitarianism, authoritarianism.
Right. I mean, we know that at least one U.S. citizen was sent a letter by, I think it was either ICE or DHS, saying she's a immigration attorney. And she was sent a letter saying self-deport within a week or the state will find you. And then they're claiming that this happened in error. But yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, and since you mentioned Kyle, what was that?
Even if
cutting in now?
Oh, sorry.
I was going to count our guest in to have another person on stage.
Do we have another guest coming in?
We do have another guest.
All right, let's bring our very, very surprised and unexpected guest in, and while we do that, we will turn to that court order. So yes, now there's some discussion about, oh my gosh, it's Chase. I never would have guessed. Hello, Chase. How are you doing?
Oh,
he's a little frozen. There we go.
Hey guys, how y'all doing? Just relaxing this evening. I've so far avoided deportation to El Salvador, but there's still time. Not to make light of things, but thank you guys for having me on. First off, I heard the words radical empathy and my brain started itching. Two things. You can order a radical empathy t-shirt at the Libertarian Party of Indiana store. Beautiful. If you so want to. It's a pretty cool design. I'm going to be ordering one myself. Secondly, I agree with you, Kyle. I agree with you, Kyle, that radical empathy is not, the Constitution is not radical empathy. It is pretty straightforward. And for those who think that due process doesn't really matter, if you look at the Bill of Rights, 5 of those 10 deal with the rights of the accused when the government accuses someone of something. And so whether it's search and seizures, the right to a speedy trial, cruel and unusual punishment, these are rights that are sacrosanct, actually, and it's not radically empathic to say that we should have the bare minimum of due process. That's not radically empathic. What is radically empathic is recognizing that people have the right to come to this country and make a life for themselves if they're peaceful people, and we shouldn't be stopping peaceful people from engaging in market relationships with other peaceful people to build the American dream. And so for those of you out there who are libertarians who think, hey, it's radically empathic to give people basic human dignity, when the government accuses them of something, you need to check yourself literally before you wreck yourself. Because right now, if you are on the side of this government and what they're doing, you're on the side of tyranny. You're no longer worrying about being squashed by the boot. You are the fucking boot. And that's a problem. And libertarians, we stand for removing the boot from our necks. We believe in don't tread on anyone. And so right now, there are several hundred people who have had no court date, who have had nothing but the government just saying, based on tattoos and hats and whatever, that they are hardcore gang members and they've been sent down to El Salvador. These are people like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who we're seeing right now having to be fought for his life. We don't know if he's alive or dead. It's like this Venezuelan barber who is, he was just swept up and came to this country to escape the homophobia that he had encountered in Venezuela and is now in one of these prisons. This is a shameful day for our country. And I don't mean to rant, but I needed to let loose a little bit because this is the moment. And Jake, you were mentioning a constitutional crisis. That could very well come to pass. And libertarians need to recognize one thing, okay? The push may come to shove. And if that happens, we have to stand united with people who we might not agree with on economics all the time. We might not agree with you on how the roads get funded, right? But when it comes to human beings being erased and disappeared from our society, those differences are inconsequential at this point. And I say this as somebody who ran against Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I didn't think it was going to get this bad this fast. The speed at which our country is careening towards constitutional crisis is a worrisome thing. But I don't want to leave you all with a downer, right? And I'm going to let y'all jump in here after this last little bit. But here's the thing. We have actually great potential in the liberty movement because people are starting to wake up. Even people who voted for Donald Trump are waking up and seeing these abuses. And I'm on TikTok all the time because, I'm in politics and you got to follow the TikTok and all the social trends. And every video that I see right now, Republicans who are like, I'm sorry I voted for this. I didn't realize it was going to be like this. Every comment is effing Democrats being like, well, you get what you deserve. You voted for this. Enjoy your fucking vote. That does not need to be the attitude of the liberty movement of the Libertarian Party. What we need to say is, hey, we recognize you effed up. Don't do it again. Don't be fooled again. And it's the same thing that woke me up when Barack Obama became president and he signed an NDAA that allowed this crap to begin with, to snatch people off the streets with no due process, with no court date, under the label of terrorism. It's the Bush administration that put this into place too, with the Patriot Act and all the abuses there. And guess what? Everyone was fucking silent for years. Everyone was silent except for libertarians. And so now is not the time for libertarians to be silent. We've been the tip of the spear opposing the state, certainly since the war on terror began. It's our time now to lead the way and to help lead people to sensible solutions and to say, we are not going to stand up for this anymore. And I don't care if we disagree on economics. The time is now to organize and to get together. The time is now for us to say no more to these abuses. And so I'm going to be an active activist. I'm going to be back out in the streets. Why? Because you have to be. I've been tear gassed by my government. I've been pepper sprayed by my government. I've been abused by my government. But you know what I know? It's better to live free on your feet than die on your knees. And that's what we have to do. Right. Or to actually, reverse that. It's better to die on your feet as a free person than to live on your knees as a slave. And so we need to be active and out in the streets. And I'm going to be there with y'all. So I hope anybody who watches this knows that real libertarians across the spectrum, from the pragmatic to the most radical anarchist, needs to recognize this moment and this peril and come together, which is why I'm here on the LP Alliance podcast, because the time for division has passed. The time to bring the message of freedom to the people is here. And so while I felt there was a lot of things our party did and screwed up in this last election cycle, where we could have been seizing this moment better, it's better late than never. And so I'll end my little rant with that and just say hello to everybody.
Hello,
But I need to
Chase.
get some shit off my chest because I'm really tired of seeing former party chairs act like it's a bad thing to oppose blatant abuses of human rights. It's okay to admit you were wrong, Angela. It's okay to admit that you shouldn't have invited him to our stage. It's okay to admit you shouldn't have been complicit in this war criminal getting elected. It's okay to admit you screwed up.
That you've been
In fact,
had, that, yeah,
actually a good
you
thing.
let yourself fall for the idea that you were some hugely important person who had his ear and could influence him. Yeah, a lot of libertarians fell for that. And I'm glad you mentioned Obama because, yeah, I too came from the left. Like in high school, I was a left-wing anarchist. Then, yeah, as I got older, I'm like, you have to outgrow your anarchism. So I guess I'll side with the Democrat Party because they
Growing
claim
into anarchism,
right,
becoming more and more anarchic.
I fell for Obama's rhetoric too, and then yeah, I went through the same like identity crisis when he started persecuting whistleblowers and yeah, drone bombing. What was it, 7 countries? Yeah, like those of us who came from the left went through this with Obama. And yeah, a lot of people who came here from the right, they honestly thought they had the opportunity to influence the state. So they supported Trump. And yeah, they're learning the hard way. Yeah, it is. It's hard not to, you have to resist the urge to say, I told you so. And yeah, to try to work with them. And yeah, if they're realizing their mistake and they're admitting to it, yeah, we should be working with them, I think.
Absolutely. And you're talking about how, Chase, during your much welcomed rant, you were talking about how it's not radical to respect due process. It is radical in the sense of it's a fairly new concept, right? That these rights exist and that we should respect them and show reverence for them. I wouldn't call it.
I would argue that the rights are new relative to the Bushes in Britain, but they're very old relative to America. And so as long as we are the country that we are, they are ingrained as part of our soul.
But America's
fairly
new.
That we are not compared to the rest of America.
I mean, if you really want to get philosophical about it, guys, some of these things that we talk about all the way back to the Magna Carta. So some of these concepts are quite old, even though they haven't been properly expressed up until the founding of our nation, the ratification of our Constitution, the continued amendments, and then the continuing to need to perfect that. Like, we don't live in a perfect union. I think any libertarian just happy with the government we have right now, raise your hand. Cool, that's what I thought. But the point is we live in a much better world than we could be living in as, peasant serfs of the feudal system, right? And we certainly had the Enlightenment to thank for a lot of that. But you're right, a lot of this is new in the terms of human history, in the terms of the way people have interacted with government, having things like due process. And it's certainly new for a lot of communities that didn't even have proper due process for a long time. When I say it's, as old as the country, I got to think of that as a white dude, right? It's as old as the country for white dudes to have due process. Women didn't really have full equality in this country, legal representation, couldn't get a credit card in your name up until like the 70s or whatever. Let's be real, black and brown faces didn't have full due process and rights for a long time in this country. And so you're right. Some of these ideas are pretty brand spanking new when you really think about the full exercise of due process, the treatment of immigrants with respect. I mean, Ronald Reagan, I'm no fan of Ronald Reagan. Let's be real. I'm gay. And so I shouldn't really be a fan of Ronald Reagan. But dude's rolling over in his grave when he sees the way we're treating immigrants in this country. Right. So it's just a spit in the face of a lot of America's promise is what we're seeing. It's just aggravating.
Well, and talking about America's promise, now there is something, and I think you were coming on as we were reading various posts. We have been reminded as well by someone who calls herself the redheaded libertarian that there is something called an Alien Enemies Act. This is, and I'm quoting, a wartime measure that doesn't require presumed innocence, was passed by many of the same men who were delegates at the first Constitutional Convention, and has been ruled a constitutional executive power by the Supreme Court. So this is potentially constitutional and must be all right. Is that correct?
I had to explain to her at one point that Puerto Rico is part of the United States. She's a few territories short of a country.
couple ways.
There's always a loophole. There's always
For
some
me-
excuse to be able to declare that, oh, it's an emergency. This is a temporary
For me,
measure.
you know,
We've got a delay a little bit.
my bad. Can you
You're
all
good
hear
now.
me
You're
still?
mute. Yes. Now
There we
we're
go.
good. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes. Might have to log on and log off if you can't hear.
Sorry, my bad. Yeah, I'll be back out in just a sec.
Sounds good. Rose, you were saying something. We had a slight lag between yourself and Chase.
Oh, right. Yeah. I was saying, like, yeah, there's always some case law or some act that was put into place that, yeah, people can point to, or the current administration can point to and say, oh, this tells us that if there's an emergency or it's wartime, we can completely subvert people's these rights that we're supposedly here to protect. Yeah, there's always some convenient excuse for why the state doesn't have to obey the rules that they claim to follow. But
This is the beauty of the state of emergency is you can do anything during a state of emergency, and I won't monologue on this too much. But yeah, there's always an opportunity to get what you want by declaring a state of emergency. And
What happened during COVID?
a state of emergency for like 30 years. I think it might have been Egypt.
yeah,
Once the state has seized particular powers, they don't give them up. Okay, like we were told that the Patriot Act was going to be temporary and that it was only to prosecute terrorists. Okay, why has it been renewed every time it's up for renewal? Because
For
cops
safety.
cops whine that it's going to make their jobs harder if they can't spy on people without warrants. Because, okay, like something like, I think well over 90% of the crimes, quote unquote, that it's used to prosecute are victimless crimes, such as drug crimes or other things that it was not sold to us as. It was sold to us as a temporary measure to prosecute, or rather to investigate and go after terrorists. And it's used for run-of-the-mill, mundane, victimless crimes mostly.
that's the
Well, that's
thing.
because
is
we've been branded terrorists.
But cops, whine that it's going to make their jobs harder if they don't have it. So it just gets renewed every time it comes up for renewal.
Joe is absolutely right. He says the government decides who a terrorist is, what rights are infringed during an emergency, also declares when there is an emergency, and this is absolutely true. This is the difficulty with the imperial presidency. The entire concept of the emergency declaration, if nothing else, even if you're not a libertarian, you should understand it needs to be massively reworked so that there is accountability for the declaration of these emergencies, not so that these can continue indefinitely without any popular consent, without even any congressional consent often enough. This needs to change. Because otherwise we declare gang violence an emergency, we declare immigration an emergency, we declare slowly we declare ideological opposition an emergency. And this is the sort of thing that a couple of years ago I would say is very slippery slope. But it's rapidly proving itself to not be entirely out of the question. Chase, before you dropped out, you were saying something.
Yeah, what was that first line that the redhead libertarian said about the Alien and Ease Act? What kind of measure is it?
It is a wartime measure.
A wartime measure. Hey, did we declare war recently? Are we fighting the Germans and the Italians and the Japanese still? Because that's the last time we declared war.
Even
if you want to excuse this BS, it's not a war. So it's not a wartime measure that he's taking right now. He's utilizing wartime powers outside of wartime, which is not in the purview of the presidency. Secondly, just because the founding fathers thought it was the greatest idea, it wasn't great. We had slavery from the founding fathers. We had the alien and the sedition acts of John Adams, where if you criticize the government, you could be jailed. What libertarian would, John Adams liked it, so it's cool to do. It's cool to throw people in jail for saying stuff. No, I'm sorry. Sometimes they had bad ideas too. They're fallible human beings too. And no, this whole excusing wartime measures to abuse people and to disappear them is bullshit. And if you're going to say that, you need to take the word libertarian out of your name. You can be the redheaded whatever, Certainly not a redheaded libertarian, just being real. You think Thomas Massey's cool with this? Do you think Rand Paul or Ron Paul are just loving what's going on? No, they're not. I mean, take a cue from Ron Paul. The fact that he's spoken out against this, the fact that he's spoken out against the tariffs, the fact that he's spoken out against the students having their visas removed. I mean, come on. You may hate me, people out there, but a lot of people who do love Ron Paul, and me and him are sitting on the same side of this argument. So what are we even doing here?
You were talking earlier, Chase, about needing to get involved and needing to ally with people who are potentially ideologically averse to us in some respect. And yes, Devin, Ron Paul does have radical empathy. This is absolutely true. I mean, we're a minor party, right? So we've got the Republicans and the Democrats. We have two major parties. And the only way that we make our voices heard in any considerable measure is by standing with people where we are aligned, by having these single issue coalitions, and by being forceful, because we are not strong enough on our own to take on an authoritarian regime that has every interest in perpetuating this. I mean, if the Democrats right now are finding it politically expedient to criticize Trump, the next Democratic administration will see something very similar, if not identical. So yes, aligning with other minor parties, other advocacy groups on the issues where we are aligned is critical. And I'm interested, Chase, if you have anything in particular that you're planning or that you're working on toward that end.
Well, I can give you a great example. I just got back from the hands-off protests a couple weeks back, and in Atlanta there were over 20,000 people. And I was there with my bullhorn marching. And, when I march, I'm the type that is very loud and likes to lead chants. And so I was leading chants of tariffs are taxes, tariffs are taxes. I was leading with immigrant rights or human rights, freedom, not prisons, like things like that were really good. And there were some people who were like, hands off my Social Security. And I'd be like, listen, I don't agree with you on that, but like, if that's what you're concerned about, be concerned about it. I'd love to debate you about, how you can privately save for retirement better than using a government Ponzi scheme, but like, whatever, like if you're here, there's a chance to have a conversation with these people. And libertarians need to stop being afraid to go into crowds and marches and protests and be part of that. It doesn't mean you endorse every single thing that's going on, especially one of these giant protests where there's about 50 different issues that are bringing people together. But what it does is it says that you're being brave enough as a party and as an organization to get out and be part of the conversation, especially when there's a very authoritarian government. It's what the Libertarian Party did very well during the Bush years. Honestly, I first met libertarians opposing the Obama war machine, and that it was good, because it was the remnant of the anti-war movement that was left over, and I happened to find the libertarians that were there. But I think we can do a good job of getting out and being visible and saying that we're not standing idly by. And let me tell you, Democrats in Atlanta noticed that I was there, because I did make sure people know I was the libertarian candidate for president, and I'm still out here marching in the streets. And you know what I got a lot of from people? I'm glad you're here. Where the hell's Kamala Harris? Where the hell's Joe Biden? Why aren't they out marching in the streets with us? Why aren't they organizing with us? Why are they still flying in private jets and hiding away?
One of the things Chase is mentioning here goes along with what Joe is saying in the comments, which is exercising the First Amendment is always a good thing. And we've gotten really bad with the news where we talk about the First Amendment and the only thing you ever hear is speech. But there are 5 parts to the First Amendment, all of which are important here. It's a real easy way to remember this there is a real easy way to remember this with an acronym. RAPS with 2 P's. Your religion is free. Your assembly is free. Your press is free. Your petition is free. And your speech is free. There are 5 guaranteed rights. If we're not out there assembling against the government to let them know that there is an army of us out there, there were over 12,000 protests today. There's an army of us with over 100,000 people today alone who are out there showing everyone what's going on. The government is only afraid if they see all 5 of these being exercised against them. The government doesn't give a shit what you post on Twitter. They don't care what you post on Facebook. They don't care what you post to anywhere in the world. You have a TikTok saying, fuck the government. No one cares. Get out there. Show them with your physical body that you are here to stop the nonsense. That's the only thing that they're afraid of. They're afraid of losing votes, and they're afraid of losing their power. And when we're out there and the news shows us, we don't have the money to advertise like some of the big groups do, but the news is going to show up if there's 10,000 of us in a location, we're all screaming. Period.
Necessary but insufficient. That's the spoken and the written word are necessary but insufficient. And there's this tendency that I think we have today to imagine that, social media has done great work in terms of making it possible for people to coordinate and for making it possible for people to, to network over a large amount of space, right? But the problem is that we think that it's okay, that it's possible, and that it's enough to just post something on social media and that we've had an impact. It's not enough, it's necessary, but it's insufficient to be speaking out. You have to be acting as well. And Kyle is absolutely right. I mean, I think we can top 7 people at a Rage Against the War Machine rally. I think we can top 7. So I would love to see the LP come together and actually organize something big here.
Right. I mean, that's like the New York Libertarian Party is, we're currently working on something where we're trying to get more people involved in on the ground activism for that reason. Because, yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, it's nice to debate people on social media and to have the moral high ground. But if we can't take these principles and actually put them into practice, then what is our real purpose as a party? Like, yeah, we should be demonstrating these principles in action on the ground. So, yeah, and we do. We need to be demonstrating why our First Amendment rights are important. One thing I've noticed, like with the state-controlled media, they will try to turn the First Amendment or the concept of free speech into a political issue. Like during the Bush administration, it was considered a left-wing issue where it was the Republicans who were saying, oh, if you support free speech, then you're with the terrorists. During the Obama administration, and also actually into the Biden administration too, people were trying to frame this as some kind of right-wing or Republican idea that, oh, if you support free speech, you're with right-wing extremists. Okay, clearly we need restrictions on, for example, hate speech or calls to violence, or I've been here long enough that I've seen all sorts of attempts to undermine the concept of free speech and to make people or get people comfortable with the idea that there should be restrictions on it.
And speaking of
how about
hate
the
speech,
concept of government coercion of speech?
I mean,
Sorry, I'm lagging.
No, that's another one too. All right.
Oh yeah.
Impelled speech is also a huge problem, a huge issue. When we talk about hate speech,
I just want to bring up just a quick thing if I can. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're good. We understand that there's a lag thing going.
I just want to bring in the hypocrisy. I just want to bring up the hypocrisy that we're seeing a little bit from our government here, particularly Republicans, because it was not long ago that they decried the tyranny of our IRS and tax-exempt status being held over Tea Party groups and government groups. And they were saying the government is targeting us and using the IRS as a weapon, weaponizing the IRS. How dare they? People like J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and a whole bunch of other people who are right now excusing Donald Trump doing the exact same thing to Harvard University. And he's not even like, in the Obama and Biden stuff, it was like, we need to investigate if this is actually happening and to what extent. Donald Trump just ordered the IRS to take away the tax exempt status of Harvard because he doesn't like the things they're saying and the things they're teaching. I'm sorry. Like, first off, we should all be tax exempt. Let's be real. But to try to use the IRS as a weaponized thing, when that was the thing you were all complaining about in the last term, is ridiculous. And this is also the message to Democrats. You better run if you're going to run at all, you better be running on, we need to take power out of the hands of the president. Because boy, did you give the power to the president for 8 years when Obama was in town, when he was in charge. And the message now needs to be, it doesn't matter what party you're with. Voters should not vote for you in a primary or a general election for Congress unless you are dedicated to taking power out of the hands of the executive. Now, I'm lagging really bad, you guys. I'm going to let y'all go and enjoy the rest of your podcast here. But I just want to say thank y'all for letting me come on and rant a little bit at the viewers.
Thank you.
Get some
Absolutely
steam
wonderful,
out.
Chase.
And
Thanks
you guys
very
are
much.
great. And thank y'all for all the work you've done.
Thanks
Thank
for coming.
you. Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
reach out and see if we can't figure out what's going on with your internet. We'll get that.
Yeah,
all
we'd love
squared
to have
away
you
for
back.
next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, Chase.
It's
When
definitely a lesson.
One day, Kyle.
that
It's just
a
my
lot of
shitty
people-
laptop. Anyways, you guys have a good one.
Good night.
Thank you, Chase.
It's a lesson that a lot of people have to learn the hard time. Like there are people who will temporarily align themselves with libertarians because they are against the current state or the way it's being used, but they're not necessarily averse to power, and they will jump at the chance to use this against their perceived enemies. And then there are the people who are just against power in general because they realize that no one can be trusted with power. So yeah, a lot of people have to learn that lesson, and seemingly over and over too. And we're seeing this, with the IRS. Yeah, conservative or Republican leaning groups had to learn this, or rather, they were against the IRS being weaponized against conservative groups, but now they have no objection to doing this against their perceived enemies.
yeah,
Well, a
it's-
lot of it, they set up this narrative a long time ago, right? That Obama was going to run for a third term. He wants to be a dictator. You remember that talk, right? It was all the time, all the time. And so they convinced themselves that that was happening to justify what they're doing now.
Mhm.
Anything can be justified. And we're in a state right now where the Republican Party has been on edge now for 25 years. The war on Christmas, the culture, where you used to turn on Fox News 25 years ago, and that's all you would hear about. They have turned these issues, these things that they created, these issues, as something to campaign on, and it's all they've got. Now they're going to turn the heavy hand of the state against every one of their opponents, and they're doing it right now.
I've been trying to sort of over the past several days diagnose this weird, I'll call it an infiltration, why not, within the Libertarian Party, sort of what the thinking is when people say I'm a libertarian, and they're not a Republican, they're not a Democrat. They're something that is, they're vaguely nationalistic, at least vaguely. I was telling Kyle the other night that the libertarianism to fascism pipeline is real, and I was only partially joking. But I think what it is this, that there are people who want to be left alone. There are people who want to be left alone, and so they want the government to leave them alone. But they also want the factors in society that bug them to leave them alone. And to that end, they will use the mechanisms of government and the institutions of tyranny and authoritarianism to make sure that the parts of society and the parts of culture that they don't like leave them alone. And that's what I think is causing some of this mix-up, that it's this desire to be isolated. And this is why you see a lot of hardcore isolationism on this part of the people who identify as libertarians. It's this desire to be isolated, and it's this desire to not be bothered, not by the state, and not by other individuals. And I see this happening more and more, causing this confusion where people identify as libertarians and perhaps are not. They're just atomistic.
Right. They like a lot of people like the idea of having the liberty to do things that they personally approve of. But then, as soon as someone starts doing something that they don't like, then suddenly they're all about stopping them by force or physically removing them from a community, or however they try to justify it.
Well, and we've had libertarian leaders. I mean, you saw that tweet from Angela McArdle that says that libertarianism is a right-wing philosophy. We've had for the past several years of this nonsense hogwash. It used to be when you joined the party, we'd go over the Nolan chart with every new member, people that show up to the convention, and explain the false left-right paradigm. That doesn't happen anymore. People assume that we're on the right for whatever reason. It's probably because of our marketing is so horrible, and they just assume that, and they fall into these traps. And I could see this happening a few years ago whenever libertarians started talking about these culture war issues.
Uh-huh.
The second you start doing that, you've fallen right to where the Republicans want you. The Republicans have used gay marriage in the past as a culture war issue to get people back over. They also use abortion. And now they've ran out of those issues to talk about, so they're going to come up with transgenders. Oh my God, the transgenders are coming after you. Anything they can use to try to draw some wedge, they're going to use, and they will fool these conservatives who think they're libertarian. They get fooled and they think that, oh yeah, we're the real libertarians. Real libertarians hate immigrants. Real libertarians, want to put the entire military at the border like Dave Smith wants to. And they have completely destroyed the term libertarians to a lot of people. It's just now a complete misunderstanding, and they think they're the real libertarians, but of course they're not.
They're trans libertarians. They believe that they're libertarians. They're not really, and we just have to deal with it because they're wrecking it for the rest of us. Now, there was an individual who responded to Angela's comment about libertarian being right wing. He had three pirate flags in his screen name. I highly doubt he has any idea. He says, yeah, no, it's absolutely a right-wing philosophy. Mr. Three Pirate Flags says that libertarianism is a right-wing philosophy. What is this world coming to, my good people? Gosh, anyway.
I try to avoid these debates unless someone, this is one of those situations where you have to have you have to establish upfront what is meant by right-wing versus left-wing.
Yeah.
People tend to use those terms very differently. For example, with some political spectrums, right just means free markets versus collective markets or gift economies or economic collectivism. Other people will use those terms to mean like social conservatism versus social progressivism. So you need to define your terms up front. This is why I try to avoid saying that. Oh, we're not. But I try to avoid saying I'm on the left or the right unless I can define those terms for that exact reason.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's a good approach. I not long ago on the Torch wrote an article called "Make Libertarianism Left Again" for the purposes of triggering all the right people. And it went well. But basically, described the the morphology of the terms left and right and what we're really talking about here.
Right. And for a while, left was viewed as anything that was anti the current establishment. So I always like one way to really trigger people. I like to say, ANCAPs are leftists. And then they get all mad when I describe, well, you're against the current variant of capitalism, aren't you? So therefore, you're on the left per the historical definitions of left and right. That's always fun.
Yes, Joe, that is what I did there, trigger all the right people. When it comes to, we were talking a little bit earlier about hate speech and about the right and the wrong people being triggered. So there was a story that broke, and I'm looking at my phone right now. Yes, there was a story that broke recently about the chairwoman of the Libertarian Party of Colorado, who is Hannah Goodman, and who made some remarks. Essentially what happened is this: that there was a meme that was posted on the Facebook account that was on the official Facebook account. Someone took issue with the meme, and Hannah Goodman proceeded to shoot slurs at them. This got picked up and written about in the Denver Post, at which point there was an outcry after it became harmful to our brand, since the media finally caught wind of it. So, of course, the argument that's being made is, well, we're libertarians. We are all about free speech, right? So this should actually be something that we are celebrating, that people are saying these words that are thought of as being, socially improper. We should be glad for that. What's wrong with that?
If the purpose of you using words is to make other people upset, and you are purposely choosing words that the word itself makes people upset, that's your entire reason for using that word, you're being an asshole. And at the end of the day, what Hannah Goodman doesn't seem to understand, because she's never had a successful business or any successful endeavor of any kind,
Ouch.
Is that it's just the facts. Go look at where she works and where she lives. No success. So the the fact of the matter is the Libertarian Party is a business. We are registered as a business. The LNC is a business. Every state affiliate's a business. We all are here to provide a product, which is liberty in the form of candidacy that will push the libertarian ideals. Our product is liberty through candidacy. And the things we take in exchange for that are membership, volunteer efforts, and money. If you do anything as a leader of the business to harm any of those three things, you fired, right? And so what's happening is Hannah Goodman doesn't know anything about business. She doesn't understand what the party is. She doesn't understand the ideals of the party that we sell. She doesn't understand our product. And so she takes the time to shit on people who are buying our product and she is going out of her way to ruin the business because she thinks throwing around intellectual disability and gay slurs is funny. Using that language on your own, if you're in your own house, none of us are going to say anything. Many of us will have a personal opinion on if you're shitty for doing it, but none of us are going to go out of our way to dog you. When you are doing it as the identified leader of a group of the business, because effectively the affiliates are franchises of National. That is part of the affiliate agreement, is that they are under National. If you are ruining the National brand and you're ruining the brands of other affiliates, you need to be fired. You have failed your business leadership. Hannah Goodman has done nothing but lose membership and lose money for Colorado the entire time she's been in. She's been a poor person for spreading the ideology. She has done nothing correct. And she and her cronies are like, ha, but we talked to Kennedy. No one cares. No one cares if you talk to somebody. No one cares if you have clout to talk to a person. When you run off our customers and you destroy our product, you are a loser. Period.
And we
They
have
got
right
him
to free
to sign
association.
they got him
Go
to
for it.
sign a Liberty Pledge, though. I'm sure he and his campaign people were laughing the whole time, but they got him to sign a Liberty Pledge when they tried to put him on their ballot line. Also, you sound like you sound like you're a radical communist. Clearly, the reason the Libertarian Party is pushing back is because they're taking their cues from radical communists, according to the LPCO people.
I'm so glad to be the one who's
clowns.
not being called a radical communist. It's so nice. It's so refreshing. I love it so
We're,
much.
we're all gay race.
Was Trotsky
communists.
radical? Really?
Whoa. Wow, Kyle.
Well, I mean,
don't know.
I'm just asking, as our resident Trotskyist, what's your thoughts there?
This is a running joke, everyone. I'm just to be clear. It's the running joke that's just been disclosed now. So I guess we have the headcanon now, the LP Alliance headcanon, with me as the resident Trotskyist.
Well, just you're gonna get run out of LP Alliance, and yeah, then we're gonna blame you for everything that goes wrong. We'll just say, "Oh, that's Amanda's doing. She's clearly sabotaging us from behind the scenes."
Yeah, you can accuse me of wrecking. That's what you can do, and eventually just banish me from. I'll go hang out in Mexico. I'll
It's
be
like
very happy.
we've been asked both times on the business list so far. Why does Amanda only want our background to be the Soviet
It's
flag?
not my
Why is it
choice.
red?
That was Kevin's choice. Everyone, we're getting off topic, and I'm sure it's really irritating our audience, so we'll bring it back. We have the right to free association, and so to make the claim that we have to keep these people on board or we're against free speech, right? It's just illiterate. That if Hannah Goodman says something that makes us not want to associate with her as a brand, then it is part of the same schema.
We're being told we didn't know that the background was red because, our graphics guy is colorblind.
It's not true.
Probably
thought
thought it was a nice,
It's
he
not
thought-
true
thought it was
because he
a
asked
nice-
me how I felt about the background being
a
red.
nice
Right,
earth
and
tone
you
green.
okayed this USSR nonsense.
I don't see any gold at any point. Free association.
I
and
wouldn't know.
freedom
Devin and I
of
are colorblind.
speech. You have the gold in the background right there, sir. Freedom of association and freedom of speech are part of the same schema. So again, it doesn't compute to say because you will not associate with us, you are violating our freedom of speech. That's not how it works.
No, and you know, it was Bastiat that did say that the worst thing that could happen to a good cause is not to be skillfully attacked, but to be ineptly defended. They are ineptly defending it. And one thing I don't think it got mentioned was in response to the Denver Post, they sent this guy a 7-page manifesto on how right they were. Who are they trying to reach? The only thing they're trying to do is to turn people away from the libertarian movement. They're the worst marketers. I wouldn't want them anywhere near my business if they tried to sell anything like that. No one would buy anything from these guys. And you know, Hannah Goodman compares herself to a large horse, but she has less of a vocabulary than Mr. Ed. You know, she
What do
when that's
large
the only
horses do? Sorry,
Big
go
when
on.
hair.
those, when those are the only 2 words that you know to insult someone, I mean, this is ridiculous. And she takes credit for things that she didn't do. They engage in these ridiculous schemes with the Republican Party and with RFK instead of actually doing their mission. They're focused on everything but their mission. And yeah, it looks pathetic. It's not attracting anyone to libertarianism, and they're not gaining anything from doing that.
Right. Like, I mean, I understand because, like, I come from a state that's like solid blue. Like, we're a one-party rule state here in New York. So, like, I understand what they were attempting to do. Like, they thought that by running RFK, they could split the Democrat vote and become a two-party state. Like, I get that, but you want to do that, like, don't try to do it through a party where you agreed when you signed an affiliate agreement that you were going to support the duly elected libertarian nominee. Like, I'm the type of person who takes my written agreement seriously because we advocate for either no state or reduced state, depending on what type of libertarian you are. So in order for the ideas that we advocate to work, people have to be willing to follow their agreements, because that's the most common criticism of our philosophy. Oh, but what if people just refuse to abide by their agreements and what if they won't follow the rules that they agreed to follow? How are you going to enforce that? So I think it's a serious problem when people who join the Libertarian Party, well, we don't even have any power currently, just decide, you know what, this contract I signed, that doesn't mean anything. I'm just going to do what I want. Like, you're showing what type of person you are, and we haven't even accomplished any of our goals yet.
You make a very good point, and it also goes back to that Kennedy Victory Fund, right? You know, the question is, a lot of these state parties will say, well, we needed the money. That's not the first question to ask. When somebody offers you money, you decide, is this legal? Is this ethical? If it's not legal, if it's not ethical, you don't even consider whether you need the money or not. That was where a lot of these states went wrong. They see these big offers from Kennedy. They see what can we get out of it, and they're not even looking to see if it's legal or it's ethical. And that is what gets us into these problems. They don't honor. It's not ethical to not honor the agreement they had with the National Party. If you didn't want to put Chase Oliver on the ballot, fine, disaffiliate, put RFK on there, and be the socialist party that you want to be to compete against the Democrats. If that's really what you want to do, disaffiliate and do it. But that's not what they did. They wanted to play this game where they wanted to make agreements with Kennedy, kick the Libertarian nominee off the ballot, and then Hannah Goodman turned around and endorsed Trump anyway during the election.
And Joe brings up a great point again, that Hannah abdicated fiduciary duty as an officer in the Libertarian Party. And yes, on top of taking the RFK Jr. money, the Libertarian Party is still in a great deal of debt, to the point that...
How that works. All that money just kind of vanished.
Strange, very strange.
Yeah,
Freedom calls. Freedom calls.
I've been talking about this for a long time, but yeah, it's interesting seeing such high time preference behavior from the caucus that claim to understand Austrian economics. Yeah, these people, they're like, ooh, money. They didn't stop to think, okay, are we going to end up being fined for more money than we make via this agreement where the Kennedy campaign gets 90% of it anyway?
And how many donors did they lose? How many members did they lose?
Exactly.
And Rose, as a reminder, you were, as though I'm reminding you, you were in the Mises Caucus. And so, but this was not always something that you all were doing, right? At first, you were very, very staunchly against aligning with RFK Jr. in any capacity.
Well, so this is one of the major rug pulls that happened because the New York Libertarian Party had a faction calling themselves Libertarians for RFK. So from around the time RFK started getting like podcast interviews within the libertarian sphere, there were people who were like, okay, he has enough overlap with us. We should support this guy because maybe he'll win. So, but then, yeah, October 7th happened and he came out completely on the side of Israel, and he lost most of the like principled anti-war libertarians. Yeah, the New York Mises Caucus were some of the people who were completely against aligning ourselves with RFK. So that's because I had been gradually becoming disillusioned with some of what I saw from the Mises Caucus, but then the RFK thing happened, and I'm like, okay, this is why I'm with them, because at least they are consistently anti-imperialist. So yeah, imagine what a surprise it was when the LP, the Colorado LP aligns himself with RFK. And I'm like, no, this couldn't have been the Mises Caucus. Clearly, it was another faction of the party. And then, yeah, what was it? Maybe 2 weeks later, the Kennedy Victory Fund thing happens. I'm like, the Mises Caucus is okay with this? Like, I thought that the whole reason I stuck with them was because of the Kennedy stuff. Like, what's going on here?
This is the micro of the larger picture, though. We talk about the Republicans and how hypocritical they are, that they accuse the other side of one thing and they turn around to do it. We see it within the Libertarian Party, right? And they weren't completely wrong. I mean, the pragmatists, I believe, did largely sell out to Bill Weld. I don't think they were completely wrong with that, but they used that as an excuse to do something much, much, much worse. And the other side did it. Well, you got elected and you campaigned because you wouldn't do those things, and then you turn around and do the same thing. They say that we were weak on COVID messaging. I think the party was weak on COVID messaging. They're weak on deporting people to El Salvador. They're weak on foreign policy now. They have an anti-war rally. That anti-war rally goes to some casino site now. You know, they lost all that. They just didn't renew the domain names after Trump won, I guess.
Yeah, it's
too bad. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's funny because we talk about turnabout, and sometimes turnabout is a good strategy, right? So like you take on the tactics of your opponent, but the problem is when the tactics that you undertake condition you to have the same motives, that's when it becomes suicidal. And I think there was so much taking on pragmatist tactics to the effect that these also became just indicative of a motive to merge with one's favored major party. That's when this all became very toxic. And we see it time and time again, that you can take on someone else's tactics, but you have to be damn sure that you're not taking them on in a way that they change what you actually want. Rose, you were going to say something. But
no, nothing important.
All right.
I think I covered what I was going to.
You know, I will say the Mises Caucus all the time talks about Bob Barr. Well, I was here during the time of Bob Barr, and I can tell you this: the Mises Caucus would have loved Bob Barr. States' rights this, states' rights that. The problem is they would think that Bob Barr was too empathetic. They would think that Bob Barr was too woke. That's the problem they would have with Bob Barr today. So they talk about these things. They would have had no problems with his states' rights campaigning. We had a problem with it because it wasn't libertarians. He would just pass everything on to the states to give him the direct libertarian quote on it.
I'm pretty used to being called woke just for advocating actual libertarian principles, or for advocating that people who agreed to be a representative of the Libertarian Party be held to those principles and be held to the agreement they signed. But yeah, doesn't
well,
really
at least
mean...
no one calls you a Trotskyist. At least you have that, Rose, going for
Oh,
you.
I mean, I'm pretty used to being called a communist too.
That's true.
Okay. If you're not being called a communist, a fascist, a liberal, a conservative, a Democrat, a Republican, all on the same day, you're doing things wrong.
You're not being radical enough, and you might be being too empathetic. Who knows? We do have one final item, as far as I'm aware, which is this call to action that our ex-dear leader Angela McArdle put out, soliciting libertarians, so-called, in Wisconsin and in California. So I'm being told that because I'm drinking seltzer, I'm woke. All right.
I love seltzer.
I'm
I
hitting the
have
bottle.
seltzer
It's
here, too.
such a
Seltzer.
this is a hard podcast, and it's driving me to drink. Yeah, there's this solicitation to come out to the Wisconsin conventions and presumably the California conventions. Now, this would be this is something that is seen as being strategic on Angela and Michael Heise's part, insofar as Wisconsin will have significant potentially influence on what happens in Michigan with respect to Chatterton. So we're seeing this attempt to rally, right? It is fairly late in the game to be rallying. We've already had several conventions, but Angela McArdle seems to think that this is enough time. She really does so much, honestly. She has this new job that she had to leave for and hasn't started yet. She has this autobiography that she's downloading AI to write. And now she's soliciting people to help take back the party. So this is a woman of many hats, including a MAGA one. But
Don't
at
forget
any
the
rate,
board games.
oh, of course,
She has to take the party back, otherwise she's jobless.
I was gonna say, isn't she busy with her job in the Trump administration, being a kingmaker? Like, how is she having time for Libertarian Party state convention stuff? But in all seriousness, like I can confirm at the very least that the Wisconsin Libertarian Party did not know about this. This was the first they were hearing of it. They did not offer to attend. I don't know about California, but
No, she invited herself there too, I'm told. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
Adrian Maligon did not invite her to speak to California.
I kind of figured, given who's running the California party, that they did not ask either.
Yeah.
Are you telling me you don't think that Adrian and Andrew are close friends?
No, I just have a suspicion they may not be.
BFFs, but each one has a switchblade behind their back.
We're being asked by Joe whether Wisconsin is as pro-libertarian party or anti-libertarian party. We're pro, and there is a Wisconsin Mises Caucus, and they are not to be painted as villains in this. There's a healthy rivalry, there's healthy competition, and so we are very staunchly pro, and as Kyle says, will not be changing due to Angela's nonsense. If she shows up, it'll be very interesting. Dissident Media evidently is going to be streaming the Wisconsin convention, which I'm just excited for. But evidently, Michael Heise is no longer part of that.
He walked away from Dissident Media.
A moment of silence for the former CEO of Dissident Media. He was apparently too busy with all of the other things he does, and so he's supposedly stepped away for now.
Yeah. We are at an hour exactly. And I'm not sure whether Devin had a movie trailer queued up for us, but in the event that he did or did not, what is it? You don't. Okay. So we can close out with another one of our trivia questions. Board games. What is one board game that every libertarian should play, and why?
One Night Ultimate Werewolf. Okay, it'll teach you to be careful about accusing people before you have sufficient evidence that they're the bad guy in the story, or that they're guilty of, in this case, attacking villagers.
I've never heard of that video game or that computer game before. Sorry, board game. I don't even remember my own question because I'm too distracted by Devin.
You asked us about board games?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, One Night Ultimate Werewolf.
I have never heard of it.
It's fun.
Kyle.
Like, it's an app you download and it gives you instructions, and yeah.
Huh. All right.
But then you have like little cards where everyone draws a card, and one person is the werewolf, but no one knows who the werewolf is, and then people are like, everyone else is some other role.
Awesome. Kyle, what should we be playing? What board game should we be playing?
Well, so there is a game by a small creator called Legislative Transparency, and it helps.
Sounds like a riot.
It helps to back an important candidate in California, little known Angela McArdle McGocky. Um, so they're all handmade by her. Very important. But no, in my opinion, in a similar vein to Rose's, if you haven't played Betrayal at House on the Hill, that's a great way to go. It's sort of a roguelike board game. So every time you play it, it's going to change. And everybody has books for like how they are playing. And sometimes someone is turned into a monster and then they are playing against everyone else, but it's quiet. Sometimes you're turned into a monster and your job is to chase everyone down and they know you're a monster. Sometimes the house is killing all of you and your job is to have at least one of you escape to get everyone to escape. So there's like your exploration phase and your haunt phases, and it's a lot of fun. So that's a pretty good one to play. I would like to maybe bring some board games to play for Grand Rapids.
Possibly for the Revolution. Jake, what about you?
So I really have not played board games in probably 30 years, but Battleship would definitely be one of my favorite. And we cannot forget, as Kyle mentioned, Angela McArdle's board game. This looks like a lot of fun with all the characters and just $100. For $100, you can get a handmade board game. May have went up with the tariffs. Some of the pieces a little bit difficult to get in now, but she said we wouldn't get foreign policy or economics with Donald Trump. We just got Ross freed.
It's really hard to print a game on some printer paper. It's called Beat the Lulbers.
Just doodle it, yeah.
It definitely doesn't feature one particular person she was mad at over and over again.
She does have a sequel to that game as well.
Did I make it?
Yeah.
Are you on it?
Am I really?
Oh wow! Oh wow!
My understanding is yes.
Well, there's a space that says libertarian in the cabinet, but so the game is unwinnable because you never get past that space.
I still think that he was going to take a bunch of libertarians, really tiny libertarians, and lock them in a cabinet. That's my theory, and we don't have any proof that he hasn't done that. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Kyle, Rose, and Jake, and Chase, although he is no longer here. Thank you to the red star in the background that really does look like a red star, but we're keeping it because we have to stand behind it now, or in front of it, as the case may be. That's the wrong way to salute, Kyle. I'll teach you when we're off air. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I'm not using the Bellamy salute.
Well, what's the correct salute? Is it this?
No, well, yeah, the fist in the air is good, but then there's also like a way to kind of, it's similar to the American salute, but I'm sure that the viewers don't really care. So we'll practice off air and then we'll do it at Grand Rapids. Thank you everyone so much for joining us again, and we will see you again next week. Until next time, we are the Business List.